We set sail. Okay. So we've talked about these two main parts of our physiology. The first the first one is your head and the second one's your heart, right? Head over heart, mind body, these two classic divisions. And we talked about how when we talk about the mind, we're talking about your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. It's it's this tiny part of this very small part of this very right the part of the brain which is a small part, the frontal lobes, and then your dorsolateral. It's this tiny part of your physiology that steers the entire ship. And this thing is kind of like a pilot in the cockpit. It's designed to receive signals, right? It sits at the hub of all these readouts, all these signal pathways, and it has it basically has a number of information, a number of dials and switches that tell it the state of your physiology. It also is able to, it's connected to your five senses where it has a readout of the world, everything outside yourself. And so it has like a state of everything that, it has a state of your physiology, and then it has a state of the outside world. Like the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And so this thing it's the pilot in the cockpit. It's able to receive all the signals. Now, on the other side is your body. And the body is made up of your autonomic systems, right? Your automatic systems, and also your limbic system, which are your emotions and your instincts. And this thing is a master signal generator. So we have your mind and your body, right? One is designed to interpret the signals. It's a signal receiver, and it's also a coordinator. And then you have the body, which is a signal generator. Now, to be totally technical, your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex has been called a flexible rule-setting device. And this rule-setting device, that name, it's a very technical term, and it really refers to the smallest unit of what it's capable of. Now, when you think about the world, you could think of the world as comprised of a multitude of rules, like the sky is blue, water's wet. If I walk off a cliff, then I fall, right? These are all kind of like rules. And your dorsolateral takes all these signals, right? You sort of perceive them from your senses and your observations. It takes all these signals and arranges it into a coherent structure, like some kind of interpretive structure, a single structure that you can now move through. The dorsolateral is amazing. So what you're seeing in the world is kind of this interpretation, right? It's this perception of how the world is for the purpose of moving through it to accomplish a goal, essentially. And it kind of has two jobs. The first job is to model out the world, but the second job, it has to model out yourself. So it receives signals from your physiology. It doesn't receive signals necessarily from everything. A lot of things happen outside of conscious awareness. So like your blood pressure, how your bladder works, like all the stuff that you don't know how it works. Even like your motor functions, that kind of happens without you thinking. You command, I guess you make your limbs move, but you don't really know how they move. In some sense, you don't really know how anything like happens, but what you are connected to in your autonomic nervous system is going to be your heart, your lungs, and your stomach. Three major centers that give you a lot of information that will help you accomplish your motivations. So, for example, if you're super tired, probably you don't want to run a marathon that day, for example. It also is connected to your emotions, your instincts, and so it takes all these signals and it's able to generate these rules. And some of them are descriptive rules, but some of them are also command rules. So like you have this desire and it tries to take the signal and go, oh, this means I want to buy a Ferrari. And then like once it establishes that, it'll try to figure out, okay, well, what are the sequences necessary that will allow me to acquire this Ferrari? And then it'll generate multiple sequences, and then you have to go and choose one. So that's the DLPFC. It's this flexible rule-setting device. It's the orchestrator. It's the pilot in the ship. And then on the other side, you have your autonomic and limbic systems, which is like your nervous, your kind of the state of your physiology, your emotions, and your instincts, and then also like your desires. Desires are also signals, are kind of like rules. The rule is I want a donut. The rule is I want to buy that Armani suit or whatever it is, right? And the body is this very sophisticated signal generator. So you have these two pieces to the puzzle. You have the head, which is the directive force, also the interpretive force, which can also send signals back down to orchestrate your body, prepare your body for pursuit of a motivation. Very sophisticated, highly differentiated. And then you have the body, which is primitive. It's very fast acting. It's usually the first thing that you feel. It's generally non-linguistic. It just generates signals, lots of signals, very sophisticated signals. For example, your eyes, just your eyes by themselves can differentiate between about 1 million different shades and tints and colors, and So you have these two things, and together they coordinate to build out models of the world, interpretive models of your physiology, and also models of your motivations. It's doing all these different things in order to successfully move you through the world. Because essentially, we're in this, we're in this reality, this body where we're not able to, we don't have perfect information. And so we just have to do the best we can with the information that we have. And so our ability to model things out is really predictive of how successful we are. So I want to focus in on a specific example to sort of demonstrate how these two systems coordinate. Okay, so I want you to pretend that we're in a restaurant. Here we go. This is the menu, right? Oop, actually, go here. Here's the menu. And, right, you know the goal. You've done this a million times. You already have kind of a process for doing this, but you need to figure out which item is going to be the most rewarding, the most satiating. Not necessarily the most delicious, right? We'll talk about that. But so this is sort of the setup, right? And we understand how this works. And basically, I want you to notice as we engage with this menu, first what happens to your physiology as you look at this menu, right? We're kind of really analyzing how this coordination comes together. I've been a waiter now for about 2 years, and one thing I really notice at tables is, they sit down and they say, "Hi, how are you?" and they're talking, but eventually they start looking at the menu. And when they look at this menu, this quiet comes over people. Like, I can really sense it in the table. They're very still. They're just kind of focused. Their eyes are slowly moving up and down the menu, and they're entering into this kind of meditative state. There's this calmness that comes over them. And if you recall the Stroop task that we talked about, the Stroop task demonstrated, among other things, but one of the things that it demonstrated was that whenever there's a rule change, right? Remember, this is a flexible rule setting device. It's able to take into account rules and changes in rules. Whenever there's a rule change, there's always a pause, because the system has to re-coordinate the physiology around this new rule change, given how relevant that rule change is. And so when you're looking at a new menu, the reason why you enter into this meditative state is because your dorsolateral is preparing your physiology to encounter and orient itself around new rules. Now you think about what a menu is. A menu is kind of like the rules to a game, right? The game is we need to find the most rewarding item. And the menu represents the sum total of options within this given domain that this is the world that we're stuck in. This is the domain that's in front of us. And the sum total of possibilities for finding that satiating item is located within this menu. So it's like, these are the rules of the game. You must find the right item within this subset, within this domain. And so it's like, you become very calm because it's like, okay, now I must absorb all these different rules. There's a few main problems that you have to overcome, though, with this game that you're very familiar with. And the first thing is that we have a limited amount of time and resources to gather the information. we're not going to sit and order every single thing on the menu. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. It's inefficient. And so we're going to move forward with a limited amount of information. And the game is, and we also have a limited amount of time. Like we can't, we can't spend hours and hours on the menu trying to figure out what we have. We have sort of social norms and rules that we have to follow that, I guess, supersede the importance of finding the right thing in the menu. Like we don't want to upset our friend. We don't want to find the right thing in the menu at the cost of really upsetting our friend, for example, because like you can't just spend 2 hours on the menu. So anyways, we have limited time. And so we have to discover a process, an information gathering process such that we have the highest probability of finding this very rewarding, satiating item. Excuse me. So we're trying to overcome all these limitations. And this is kind of the situation of life, right? We have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of information to move through the world successfully. And so here we go. Let's embark on this mission. And the first thing we do is we just start scanning the menu, right? We're just looking at all these different things. We're not really focusing on any one thing, except that we're aware, we're trying to be alert to certain signals. And then as our eyes scan the menu, we receive certain sensations, stronger signals over different items. Like certain things catch our eye. Beef tongue, that's kind of weird. Corned beef and cabbage, I like that. That's kind of caught my eye. And that's a really interesting phenomenon. What does it mean that something catches your eye? It's like, what is that? I think, what's the process exactly? Well, it's like a signal, I guess, right? Something catches your eye when you have a stronger sensation moving through your body. And it's really interesting. It's like, that is such an efficient way of highlighting certain items, because packed within it's almost like this little pill, this little nugget of whatever of energy that alerts us, and we go, oh yeah, corned beef and cabbage. Like, I did no real conscious processing, but packed within that little nugget of information is probably just tons and tons of experiences and memories and associations and kind of, I guess, recalling emotional information. Sometimes it can recall like technical criteria, because now I tend not to focus on burgers for some reason, because like I haven't ordered burgers in a while because I'm trying to go with a low gluten diet, and so I can't really eat the bun, and so I tend to not have, like, burgers don't really catch my eye anymore. So anyways, it's just kind of interesting, like this tiny little pill of sensation just like shortcuts all kinds of analysis. It's really kind of cool. It's very interesting. So anyways, you scan through this and you're trying to go through like an elimination process, right? Because again, we don't have an unlimited amount of time. We have to we can only analyze a few different items. And so I'm looking at corned beef and cabbage. The chicken shish kebab definitely jumps out. And maybe... yeah, those are the main things. The corned beef, cabbage, and the chicken shish kebab. Maybe the southern fried chicken in a basket. Now, there are two main problems here that we're trying to solve, in terms of like unknown information. And the most obvious one is going to be the restaurant itself, the world, the modeling out of the world. How do I know what's going to be good here? Like, I've never been here before. I didn't read any reviews. I just have to make my best guess based on what's printed on the menu, and then whatever other clues that I think are relevant. Like the name of this place is, what is it, the deli? Yeah, we got Liebman's Deli in the Bronx, so they're probably going to be good at corned beef and cabbage. I'm applying, like, I'm contextualizing this place to help me predict what's going to taste good. So that's one unknown. But the other unknown is myself, the signals in here, which is always kind of a weird thing to realize, is that we don't know what's going on in here. It's like, why don't I know? Why don't I just know immediately what I want, And once we've narrowed down these items, we have to do this like signal testing, the signal refinement, where I need to figure out actually what am I in the mood for? What combination of criteria am I going to value the most to determine what's actually going to be rewarding? Because that's kind of a definitional thing. That's a relative thing. I define what's rewarding, and yet I need to figure out what I define as rewarding, because 2 hours ago I might have been in the mood for pizza, but now I'm looking at the menu. There's no pizza here. Maybe now that I'm sitting down, I'm like, you know what? I don't really want pizza. I'm really in the mood for chicken, right? So it's like this discovery process. So we're trying to discover what's out there, but we're also trying to discover like what's going on in here. And as we're refining this signal, I'm trying to think, okay, chicken shish kebab or southern fried chicken, right? Chicken in the pie. Here, that's kind of cool too. Got matzo ball, which has some gluten. What kind of person am I today? Like, do I want to go really healthy, chicken shish kebab? Or am I going to be a little bit risky and go for the meatloaf dinner, which might be kind of rich? Like, am I going to value the calories today? Like, I want to go low calorie, or maybe, I had a really light lunch, and so, now I can kind of be a little bit more loose and go with a heavier caloric dinner. And so, like, I'm really refining my own signal, what my definition of reward is. And then I'm also trying to figure out, okay, well, how is this actually going to taste? What can this restaurant pull off successfully, right? Lehman Deli. All these things seem pretty possible. Like, my dorsolateral is really applying a multitude of rule sets to try to determine, to sharpen the signal on both ends and trying to find like a match, right? And as I'm building out the world, I'm also building out myself. And as I said, like, who am I today? It's almost like I'm constructing this internal identity. And your prefrontal, this dorsolateral, right, it's sending signals to your body. It's building out like neurological, physiological structures to inhabit this new goal that you have. So it's like I'm building out these structure, right? I'm assembling like this almost avatar of myself, and building out the multiple rules of this world. And I'm trying to figure out how this avatar, what's going to satiate this person that I am right now. And so I'm building out these structures, and then let's say, okay, today I think I want to value something clean. I don't want anything that's going to upset my stomach or make it hard to digest. I think they can pull off a chicken shish kebab. I think this is the right combination of flavor and nutrition and I guess ease of digestion that I want, and it's also the right price point, right? All these different factors that I may or may not look at to determine my reward, and every person is going to have a slightly different profile that they're looking for, and even myself yesterday might have chosen something different than what I'm choosing today. So we're trying to solve all these unknowns, and we're just predicting. It's predictive modeling. And we have to do that because the alternative is it's going to take forever. Like, it's going to cost me like $500 to order everything on here. Look at all this stuff up here. So, okay. So I've built out this model, and I've kind of like played out this avatar, right? I'm kind of thinking, okay, chicken shish kebab. I'm visualizing, I'm modeling out what it would be like to eat this chicken shish kebab. Oh, it's fried rice. Oh, cool. I didn't even see that. Okay, awesome. See, that kind of signal hit me, and I'm like, oh, now I'm really happy. So now I have kind of this anticipation for this chicken shish kebab. Now, in terms of like, now that I've determined my target, right? I've identified the target. I've isolated the target. My cat's ready to throw up. I've identified this target, and now I have to go through the sequence of events, the sequence of actions necessary to acquire this target. And since we've all been in restaurants before, I hope, it's pretty simple to get this target. I just have to wait for the waiter, or maybe I can flag him down, and all I have to do is go, hey, I want the chicken shish kebab. And he goes, oh, that's excellent, sir. Then I'll write it down, and then, right, so the waiter comes over, hello, sir, what would you like to order? I would like the chicken shish kebab with, sort of a sense of accomplishment and joy. And so I've built out this structure of expectation, this this almost like this future that I've constructed for myself, and this character that's going to move into the future and enjoy this target. And so the waiter goes away, and then I'm eagerly anticipating the arrival of this dish, and it's an exploration into the unknown. Like, I don't know what this dish will look like. I really hope that I kind of have a picture of I hope it looks like. It's on this oval dish, and then there's a nice bed of rice. Maybe it's kind of like a pilaf with some peas and carrots in it. I have this picture kind of drawn from other experiences of fried rice. And there's anticipation, a little bit of fear, which could be construed as excitement. And this is sort of the joy of dining out. It's kind of like this little adventure, And so that's how these two systems coordinate to isolate a target and then try to secure the most prosperous future. Oh, I just realized that this is the poultry section. Oh, there's steaks down here. Ah, okay, see, that's new information. See, now there's new rules. Anyways, but let's take a more extreme example. Yeah, what happens then? What happens if there's a sudden rule change that occurs after I've isolated the target, but before the dish arrives? This new rule change will now prevent me from acquiring the target of my desire. The waiter comes back, he's a little flustered, and he goes, "Sir, I'm so sorry, but we're out of the chicken shish kebab. Can I get anything else for you?" And it's like, what happens? So basically, right, I built out these structures to acquire this shish kebab. I've kind of built out this avatar, this almost like an identity that's ready to intercept this target and is ready to live out this future that I have envisioned. And now with this one sweep, this waiter has completely destroyed the future of this avatar that I've built out. And so what happens is immediate disorientation. It's like frustration, anger. It's perhaps the structures themselves that are outraged at that its existence will no longer be. Like, it's almost like you've constructed this little, I don't know, monster or robot or something like that, this copy of yourself, and then this new piece of information just ripped the heart out of this thing, and like now it's been completely centered around the possibility of this future, and now that future's been destroyed, like, it's just this dangling thing. There's nothing in the center of it anymore. And so all these neurological structures that you build out no longer has an orienting anchor, and it's just dangling now. And now we're just stuck in midair. Now what do? It's a very stressful state to be in when you're no longer oriented towards a goal. Now, obviously, it's not a huge goal, but in that light, actually, what the dorsolateral is frantically trying to do now is trying to recontextualize yourself. It's trying to reorient these systems, seek refuge in maybe like a more important rule set. So one thing that I might be trying to do is say, okay, you're getting all these bodily signals of frustration and anger. Well, what's even more important than the loss of this meal is the preservation of your social reputation. Meaning, like, if you make a scene in this restaurant, you could risk losing social value. People will be upset at you. And that's more important than whatever happened with this meal, right? So you're appealing towards a higher rule set to try to calm your system down. Like, your DLPFC is sensing danger with these really strong signals, and it's contextualizing the signals and saying, no, don't lose your temper. We need to remain, within the social norms. Otherwise, we're going to encounter more loss, right? That's one idea. It's also appealing to other rule sets, like, well, we can just find something else. This looks like a pretty good restaurant. Right? We can find another future that may be just as good. Right? It's trying to reorient itself around a new future and also orient itself to more robust rule sets. Like, no one died. It's not like I have 6 months to live now that I can't have this chicken shish kebab. No, I'm still in good health. I'm sitting here with my friend, for example. Like, if I'm out with a friend, we're having a great time in this restaurant, Like, we're trying to seek refuge in other, in identities or other, like, desirable futures. I guess you could say. And so yeah, it's trying to recontextualize it. So that's kind of the reaction that we have when we encounter these breaks in our rule sets, the loss of a rule set, you could say, the loss of a target, and how to deal with that pain. You just appeal to higher rule sets, or you try to repair the rule set by saying, well, we can find a replacement for that thing so that the structure that you build out will be fulfilled. And it's kind of a painful process, although in the case of the restaurant, it's sort of a low stakes. It's kind of a low narrative. Like there's not a lot at stake with this rule set. It's not going to impact other things. And then what happens once you sort of calm down, right? Your dorsolateral sending these calming signals as you access different rules, appealing to higher rule sets, other rule sets. You look at the menu again, and then once again you try to enter into this meditative state such that you can now build out another structure and try to envision a different future that you can put your hope in, that you can build yourself around, and the process starts again. So this is the process that we engage in when we're encountering choices in the world. And again, the reason why we go through this whole rigmarole, this process of building out the world and building out this avatar of yourself and centering your physiology around a motivation and eventual target, and envisioning that future and moving yourself into that future, the reason why we do that is because we just don't, that's the only way we know how to move through the world. We don't have the ability to try every single thing. And, even if we do that, this is changing too. So it's very difficult to have all the information necessary to make the perfect choice. This is the coordinated dance that we have to engage in. And then this is also the dance that kind of keeps us out of trouble, right? And this is the dance that kind of keeps us out of trouble, right? Because we have to, the better we are able to maintain our orientation around these rule sets that we've already determined are important to us, like maintaining our social value, not disrupting social norms. That's a very important value for us. Keeping that in perspective in the light of the autonomic system, which is non-contextualizing and just blasts out these signals, and our ability to contend with these very powerful signals that are non-contextualized, evaluate them, and try to prioritize, recontextualize them, really determines our success in the world. And then, again, playing that matchmaker, right? Building this out, building that out, finding a match, that determines how well we're able to secure a future that we value, And so, it's funny to really get into the specific mechanics of this process that we do all the time, right? Going to a restaurant and choosing a food item. But this is very reminiscent of all the choices that we have to make. And, you've already thought of this, but there's a very simple way of expressing this kind of complicated, very sophisticated process that we just went through, right? The building out of the world, the building out of your internal structures, and then moving the structure through the world to try to anticipate what's going to be the best future, what's the best outcome. There's a really simple word for that. We build out the world. We build out ourselves, this avatar. We move ourselves through the world. This is the world. This is you, right? What is that called? That's a story. We've just told a million stories. Storytelling is at the heart of our physiology. It's technically the way we coordinate how we are within ourselves with the outside world. Stories are at the base of who we are, the base of our inner workings, of our chemistry, of our autonomic operations, of our neurochemistry, And so it's kind of like if I say, well, if I were to say the universe is built of stories that reality is a story. I mean, there's some evidence of that, and that our physiology is we're built out around the story. Stories are the best way we've come up with to adapt. And the best storytellers, the people who are able to coordinate these two systems together, the ones who are able to tell the best stories, are the ones that are the most successful. And that's why we constantly tell stories. That's why we're constantly listening to stories. Because we're trying to build out and improve our predictive models. Stories are information. They're sort of information packets. They're information delivery systems. They allow us to move through the world. They're exploratory vehicles that from the comfort of our own home we can now become a knight in shining armor and fight a dragon, and see what that feels like. We can become a criminal robbing a bank. We can become a missionary trying to save a village, right? All these different paths that we can take in our lives. We can put ourselves in those situations and try to extract out the information that will help us update our own stories. And that's a technical, physiological process. We can't coordinate ourselves without a story. So yeah, that is who we are. Stories are our survival instincts, our survival instinct. There are selective exploratory simulations that happen in abstract. And so yeah, that's it. That's what we got, man.